Hello, and welcome to this special episode of CloudBites Conversations, where today we're going to go through some of the things we've learnt from our recent conversations with different people. So, we've had a few conversations so far, we've got a number lined up that'll be coming through in the next few weeks. But what I wanted to do was just have a short, different episode in the middle where we go through and review some of the advice we've been given. We had some different advice on there and we give you a useful set of tips and tricks to help you really succeed in your Salesforce career. And so today's episode is a special short one. It's just going to be me, just me and you. And what we're going to do is we're going to cover off 10 top tips to a successful Salesforce career. And as I mentioned, this is going to go through some of the ones we've had from some of our guests so far, some of the ones I know that are coming up, and just some other ones as well that I think are going to be useful for us. So, let's get started then. Tip number one is one that came from Inez in our very first CloudBites conversation. And I took this away from the conversation with Inez because it really wasn't very related to Salesforce, if I'm honest. And that's what I loved about it so much. And the first tip is to realize that you are in control of your own career. And I think that this has to be the very first tip that we have here on this tips and tricks episode because it's going to be the catalyst to helping you be successful in your careers to first of all understand that you're in control of it. Nobody else runs your career, nobody else runs your life. If you want to put in the time, want to put in the effort to be successful with your sales career, you're going to be able to do it. And so the very first tip is a nice and quick one. And thank you so much to Inez for this tip. It's to realize that you're in control of your own career. And all the tips we're going to give the rest of this episode are going to follow on from that. They're going to build upon this first ground base tip, which is to remember that you are in control. So, what that means is that if you want to go and increase your salary, if you want to change the type of role you're doing, or if you want to do something different or want to do some work that is a bit more interesting, work with a different product, it's completely within your control to do so. If you want to change your career so that you're perhaps running a team or managing a project or improving your work-life balance in a different way, maybe that's not correct at the moment. That's within your power as well to figure out how to do that. The second tip we have is one that I think every single one of our conversations so far has hit upon, and one that I know I truly believe in as well, which is that you should go out and join a user, an admin, or a developer group, or some sort of networking group related to Salesforce and start to build a network. And just to take an example from one of the conversations, Todd was talking to us about how much that has meant to him in A, joining a group, B, building a network and helping develop and build a group, and C, what it's let him get onto. Christine shared with us how she'd started by first joining a group and found it a little bit intimidating, but had gone back later and was now helping run it, and how that had really helped her grow that network. We heard from Alba how she'd joined a group and how she'd started speaking at groups as her first real foray into talking and speaking in public about Salesforce. And I think that's a really important thing to start to do, is to start to build that network. And the best way of building that network is to go out and join a developer, a user, or an admin group, because not only just by virtue of being there will you start to build a network and meet new people. Everyone's very friendly at these groups, but you're also going to expose yourself to new things and new ideas as well. That's going to help you change the way you do your day-to-day work, change the way you're envisioning your career developing and how you want your career to develop and progress. From a personal perspective, the first user group or first developer group I went to ever was a developer group. It was the London Developer Group back in, I think, 2011, 2012, something like that, a long time ago. And that was where I first met a bunch of people who I now consider good friends that I've known for years and years. One person who I'm going to get on the podcast at some point, I met him there. We went out for a chat afterwards, went out for a drink and a bite to eat, and I've known him now 13, 14 years. I was bumped into him at the Salesforce World Tour the other week, and he's a lifelong friend. We caught up immediately, and it was great to see him. So you will make great friends at these events as well. Um, but by me meeting these other people there, it started to help me build this network that I still rely upon to this day. When uh, the job I was in last year ended because the company closed down, and I started venturing out on my own, building groundwork apps and building my own little consultancy. It was through that network that I had so many contacts I could reach out to ask for help or advice or ideas. And I'm still leaning on that network, and I'm helping hopefully give back to that network today through things like this and through some of the other work I do and videos I release. But joining a group and building up that network is going to be just a massive, massive step forward for you in terms of helping you develop your career. The third tip is to play and have fun with the tools. And by the tools, I mean Salesforce or whatever it is you're working with, but obviously for this particularly Salesforce, and to learn new things through that play. And this tip actually is a very personal one from me because there's an episode which I'll link to in the show notes of me on the Salesforce Developer Podcast, the official Salesforce Developer Podcast, and it's titled "Weird Apex" with Paul Batterson. And I first got into programming because I wanted to write video games. There's a video game which is now called Football Manager. It used to be called Championship Manager in the UK, where it's effectively a spreadsheet where you manage a set of football players, and it is glorious. I love the game to pieces. Still play it a lot nowadays. Obviously, a lot less nowadays than I did when I was a teenager. But I still play it online with my friends, my brother, people like that. And I wanted to build a game. That's how I got started. But although I didn't end up building and developing games, and although that's still something I'd love to do one day is to develop and release a game, I still have always tried to approach doing my work in the way I learn as a game. And I don't mean just gamification. So how many points can I earn, and how can I be a septuple star ranger, or whatever the top level now is. What I mean is playing around with the system in a way that's going to help me understand. So a really good example of this is the machine learning system that I worked on for a Salesforce talk, for a Dreamforce talk, sorry, with a former colleague of mine, Jem Wire. She and I, are both maths nerds. We were looking. I was, doing a bit of investigation into AI and machine learning, and this was back in, I think, 2014, 2015, maybe 2016 at the latest. So way before Einstein was a thing. Truth be told, really before like AI had really got going again. It was just as things like machine learning was coming back into the lexicon of everyone. And anyway, Jen and I decided we were going to build a machine learning system. So, excuse me, a classification system using Apex. Now, this is a terrible idea. I think I've already said this on the podcast before. This is a terrible idea. Do not do this. There are many reasons why, but one of the primary ones is that we're in a multi-threaded, single-threaded environment. Sorry, with a limited transaction scope and all these other things. But doing this crazy, crazy bit of investigation, to try and understand if I could get things to work, and banging my head against those challenges taught me a lot about how the platform operates, how to make things more performant, how to improve performance of my Apex code. The most popular, one of the most popular videos I have out there still, and one of the, I think, definitely the most popular blog post I ever wrote was on how to make your loops faster in Apex. And that was just through playing around and seeing, how it worked in other languages and how you could improve things. And that led me to a fantastic little insight, and I understood the language and how it operates much, much better, and kind of some of the performance trade-offs. There's another Dreamforce talk I did on building a virtual reality system, again with another ex-colleague, Vincent Reeder. He and I built a virtual reality system using Google Cardboard. And For those who haven't seen Google Cardboard, it is literally a cardboard box you slot your mobile phone into, and your mobile phone becomes the VR. And we built a little VR system where you could use the streaming API and platform events and things like, oh sorry, the streaming API, there weren't platform events at that point, and record creation to fire off fireworks. And we had an audience where they could visit a URL and press a button, and it would say, create a record and fire a firework on screen for us. Again, no practical application at all whatsoever, but we learnt a lot about how the streaming API worked, about how the concurrency of the streaming API worked, about kind of cleaning up the data afterwards, about the memory management of that in the in the kind of browser window, so that your phone didn't start overheating too much and burning the cardboard. And so the reason I say to play and have fun with things is because you will learn a lot more doing it. It won't feel like it's a chore. It won't feel like it's a really learning. And inevitably, you'll stumble across something you didn't know before and you'll learn something new. So that was tip number 3. Play and have fun with the tools to learn new things. Um, if you're looking for a good example, a really simple example of something you could do today, is take any scenario you want from the world. Pretend you are the manager of any company, any sports team, anything you want to be doing in the world, and try and build a system in Salesforce to do that. So pretend you're managing. If your favorite thing, I'm a big football fan or soccer fan for the US listeners. I have a Man United T-shirt there on the wall. You could build a system. I could build a system that manages football teams and training for Manchester United. I could rebuild my football manager game. If you are really into Pokemon cards, build a system that manages which Pokemon cards you have or which Pokemon you've bought. If you like music, build an app that allows you to store which songs you've listened to recently and rate them, and start to classify the music so you can build your own little engine to suggest what music you might to listen to. If you are trying to study for an exam, build a little system that helps you store revision notes and maybe even shows you flashcards for it. There's the number of ideas is endless. Just take a daily task. Build I think it was Michael Farrington, and I'm going to get his name wrong, so apologies if I have. But Michael Force on Twitter, he built a wedding management system on Salesforce, I believe, at one point. The ideas are endless. So have a think about what you want to do, about something you're working on, or just enjoy in real life, and try that. So tip number 4 follows on from this, though, which is to always be learning and to get certified. So let's take this in 2 parts, because this is where some people will find it slightly controversial. Number 1, I don't think people will find the always be learning controversial. With that, you should never stop learning. It's very easy, and I've been really guilty of this. I in fact have a book here on my desk to read, which is Mastering Salesforce Reports and Dashboards. It's going to be in our book review club soon, so look forward to that one. But this book was recommended to me by another Salesforce author, because they said to me that, and this is a person who's got loads of a wealth of experience and really understands Salesforce deeply, and they're like, oh, I've just not caught up with lightning reports and dashboards. I've been busy doing other things, and that part has got ahead of me. I don't do a lot of reports and dashboards every day. I'm going to learn something from that book. I'm very open and happy to admit that what to many people might seem a simple area of Salesforce, I don't have a lot of experience or knowledge in. So with that, I'm going to go away. I'm going to learn. So always be learning. The second part around getting certified, I know that this is where some people in the ecosystem will have reservations and disagree with me, and that's fine. My logic and argument here will be, number 1, that the certifications help you stay up to date pretty well. I'll be really frank. Every time the renewals come around and I have to do the maintenance exams, I moan and I whinge about it, but I then go through them and I do learn about new features, and they are very helpful. So they do help you stay up to date and understand some of the newer features coming out, the ones that are highlighted. The certificates themselves, going through and doing the exams, forces you to spend time checking you've understood the material and what's going on. Um, I think that, I think that from my experience, the exams cover off the Salesforce products in great detail. They cover off the limits in great detail, and they cover off the gotchas in broad detail. And when I say in broad detail there rather than in great detail, um, what do I mean? I mean that you're not going to go in and the exam's not going to go through, yeah, you've received this error. What should you do? That's what Google's for. And hopefully you stumble across a Stack Exchange article or someone's blog post and you get the resolution. What I mean by broadly covering the gotchas is how do you avoid scaling problems through ownership? How do you avoid someone saying something they shouldn't? And that's where I think the certificates really shine, is that especially the admin one is a good example. It covers the basics so well. It's a very tough exam for people who haven't taken it, and it really makes sure you understand the platform well. As an interesting aside story, I was doing the technical architect track before the pyramid was in place, and I say this new pyramid. I was about to say this new pyramid. The pyramid's been here for best part of a decade, if not longer now. So the pyramid. And when I was taking the way that the exams used to work is that you had a technical architect exam and then you had the review board, and that was it. You didn't require the admin exam or anything else. I passed I think it was a 3 hour technical architect multi choice exam before I had passed my admin exam. And I will tell you that I found the admin exam took more studying. And it was because of what I was doing in my day to day job. I was an architect. I was building and architecting systems and understood integrations and identity and everything really well. But did I know some of the stuff around, like, you know, features in Sales Cloud, and things like that? And I didn't. So going away and getting certified will help you cover those things off as well. And if you want to be implementing a particular cloud consistently, doing an exam and getting the certification is going to really ensure that you have the basics covered and can feel confident. The final reason is I say it for your career because it is a massive game changer for your career. If you are not certified, you will find it harder to get a job than someone who is certified. And you can argue and be upset if you think that that's unfair, but as an employer and as someone who used to employ people, it was a good way of us being able to check some level of pass and validation. Now, there's there's edge cases and things like, if there was a developer I'd worked with for 10 years and at a previous job and he came to me and didn't have any certs, then okay, I know that they're good. I can kind of vouch for them. But in general, if you're trying to look to move around the ecosystem, certification is going to help it. If you're moving to a consulting organization, those certificates are A, worth their weight in gold, and B, make a huge difference in allowing the organization to get certain types of projects and work from Salesforce and to move up the partner tiers. If you're working as an end user, those certifications are extremely useful in helping you to understand the product in a deeper sense so you can manage your own org properly, and also to make sure that any consultants that you work with are telling you the truth and know what they're on about properly. And if you're working for an ISV, then understanding the platform and the products you're integrating with is going to help you understand how people use it. So that's tip number 4. Always be learning and get certified. Certifications, I think, are just so important and have to be done there. I just want to say on that topic as well that learning doesn't have to mean Trailhead. And I'm sorry to anyone at Salesforce or in Trailhead that listens to that, or any Trailhead fans out there. I like Trailhead. It's a fantastically useful tool. It's there's nothing else out there like it in the world or on any other platform, but it's not the only thing. I learn through reading and through practice. So books are great for me. Sitting down with the dev org is great for me. Developer documentation is great for me. For some people, that's not the same. So some people might learn through watching videos. Some people might learn through podcasts. And yeah, Alba hit on this in her recent episode with the different ways of learning. And so I think that's really important to know is, when you are keeping learning, make sure that you're using what works for you. Don't feel you have to be bullied into using Trailhead or using books or using someone's YouTube channel or whatever it might be. Do what works for you. Following on from that, though, I'm going to kind of not contradict myself slightly here, but add another top tip, which is to not put all your eggs in one basket and to learn some skills that are transferable. And this builds upon another tip that Inez gave about learning and not putting all your eggs in one basket. And I think learning transferable skills is one of the most important things you can do for your career, whatever your role is. Being better at communicating effectively, being better at communicating in a way that works for different audiences, being better at writing, being better at listening, being better at diagramming. All of those things are going to help you no matter which Salesforce career you're in, from being a sales rep or a BDR all the way through to being a kind of deep technical architect. And I'm not saying that scale is merely on like the scale of who's the moral, who's the most technical and involved in project delivery versus who's more involved in sales. Doesn't matter where you are in the organization, those skills are really going to help. So I think from my experience, both as someone who's worked on some of those skills and as someone who's hired people for not necessarily their technical skills, but these more transferable skills, if you can show me you're an effective communicator in an interview by explaining a problem and you're thinking rationally, that is going to be a big green flag for me, big green tick. If you can write in a clear, concise, and well thought out manner, that's going to be a big green flag and a big tick for me. If you can sit and listen to what is being conveyed to you and the messages within the message, that is going to be a big green flag and a big tick for me. So, as an example, I have, whenever I interview, I have a question that I ask people. And this is a secret hidden tip now, just for the people listening to this, which I might cover off in another episode in the future or another video or something. But the question I always ask is: imagine, one of the things that people always say to me is they dislike that you can't do roll up summary fields on a lookup relationship. You can only do it on master detail. And I say to them, okay, so imagine that Parker Harris, Mark Benioff, whoever you want within Salesforce, turns around tomorrow and says, we are removing that restriction. You can do roll-up summaries on lookup relationships. And I asked them to explain to me why there might still be problems with how that operates and why Salesforce might not allow you to do roll-up summaries on lookup relationships right now. And what I'm looking for here is for people to talk me through their thinking and to communicate to me effectively what they're thinking, why they're thinking it, and how that thought process works. And the reason behind that is, the answer is there is an answer, but I don't care if you know the answer or not. It's a kind of redundant question, and you're never gonna have to worry about this in real life, truthfully. But if you use one of the roll-up summary packages out there, like lookup, roll-up lookup helper, or declarative lookup roll-up summary, or any of these, you'll come across this problem. And I want you to be able to communicate to me what you think the problem is, what you think I'm actually asking, what your thought processes are, and how you're thinking about it. And then as I reply to you with my challenges to your thinking, or truth be told, my nudges and hints along the way, I want you to get the message and make sure that you're listening to what I'm saying and communicating back to me what you then think the answer is. Now, for those that just want the answer here, the answer is that in a lookup relationship, the sharing model and the sharing setup is different between the parent and the child. So if you tried to roll up all the child records, you might not be able to see them all on the parent, and so you'd get different values. Now that is a fundamental question about how the platform works, but the skills to explain that are the transferable part. Equally, going away and learning how to speak in public and how to convey those thoughts and intentions in public is a big key thing. So you can go along to the user group that you've joined earlier on and start to share your thoughts, share your ideas, communicate with other people, and even start to speak at them. Alba and Christine and Inez and Todd and Jody and everyone we've spoken to have all said about how important going along to these user groups is to speak and to have a friendly audience to do it. And my first talks were all in front of such friendly audiences. But it's another skill that if you can learn it and master it, it will really help you develop your career. So that's the next tip. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Learn other skills that are transferable. You can learn technically transferable skills as well. Get good at using Google Sheets, Excel, the command line, Git, whatever it might be. Understanding how to use your tools and understanding how to use technology will just help you as well. So learn some transferable skills and how they work. The next tip, tip number 6, is to build a personal knowledge base. And what I mean by a personal knowledge base, there's this concept of building a second brain. And I can't remember the name of, I know the book is called Building a Second Brain. I can't remember the name of the author at the moment. I will put a link to that in the show notes. But in the book, the author talks about building a second brain so that you can have notes and have documents and basically building up a repository of information for you to go back to. Now, I have a little series of documents and notes and ways of storing information that allow me to quickly search and find things for the future. So, a prime example is I can never remember the command to output Salesforce debug logs into my terminal window and color them and only find the debug logs, like the ones that the system.debug rather than the full debug. And so I've just got that saved somewhere. It's a dead easy single line command, but it saves me from having to remember it or forget it. It syncs across all my devices, so no matter what device I'm working on, I have that command available to hand. If I get a particularly funky error message, and if I manage to solve it, I save a link to the solution. I save a link to the error message, so I can search for that error message. One of the interesting stories that some people don't know is the reason I started my personal blog and CloudBites TV and these other things is to help myself. So there was an example that I think I've shared before on the podcast, but I'll share again. Where one day I had a problem. I Googled the error message. I got a Stack Overflow or Stack Exchange answer pop up, and I was like, "Oh, fantastic!" And I could see that it was an answered question as well, which is really good. And I looked down at the answer, and I was the one that had answered the question. So I had historically, the way I always describe it is old Paul knew more than current Paul. And do you know what? No matter how many error messages you come across, you're not going to remember them all. So having that repository, having that second brain makes it easy for you to start finding things and searching through things. And it will make you really invaluable so that as you start to do more and work across different products, different types of projects, different implementations, different technologies, you'll build up this full foundation of knowledge, which you then have readily available to search through in the future to save yourself a bunch of time. And that knowledge base can be just a series of files on your machine, or I recommend obviously storing it somewhere that transfers in a cloud. It could be a personal blog that you just write on that's really just for you, which you can search through. It could be notes you take in a notebook. I prefer to digitize it, purely because you can then search it. You can Control F or find or search in files and find what you want. So the key thing here is to build up that personal knowledge base so that you have all of these things you've experienced and come across and can stick them in a place for you to look at and review in the future. And it only ever grows, it never shrinks. So, following on from that, tip number 7 is to start to build a personal brand. And I don't mean by this start a blog, start a YouTube channel, post every day on LinkedIn, become an influencer. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying build a personal brand. Going to events and interacting with people builds a personal brand. Doing your job well builds a personal brand. Making sure you help people builds a personal brand. Going to events and just saying hello to people builds a personal brand. There are people, myself included, who share a lot on online, on social media, on blogs, on videos, on podcasts, and things like that. And I have a personal brand that people people can follow along with and people can get information from. But you don't have to build that sort of brand. I have a bunch of people that I will work with every single time I get an opportunity to do so who do not have that type of personal brand. But their personal brand is one that they've built up over many years of being consistently good at their work, consistently good at their interactions, and someone that I can rely upon. And that is a great personal brand. So if you take the advice we've had so far and you start to go through, you realize that things are within your control, including this personal brand and how you build it. You start to join these groups and build up a network. You play and have fun with the tools to learn, and you start to get certified and always be learning. Part of your personal brand will be those certifications and the learnings you've had. If you build these transferable skills, you will then, and you build this personal knowledge base, you will then start to build up a personal brand of someone who delivers in a good and consistent manner. And that's going to be worth its weight in gold. And I want to give you a kind of contra tale to this. So um, there is someone that I have worked with previously who is somewhat of a voice and an influencer on social media, and I'm not going to name names. And I've worked with this person before, and I'll be honest, I wouldn't choose to work with them again. Their work was not of a great quality. I had to, I had customers complain to me. I had to deal with those complaints. You know, I had to make the systems work for the customers again and fix the problems that this person had caused. And this person still has this kind of part brand of oh, I'm really good at this thing. Look at my knowledge and how I'm sharing it. But that brand that they were pushing out there is inconsistent with what they were delivering kind of in their day-to-day job. And so that brand now no longer has its resonance, particularly for me and for those people that work with it. And the problem is that anytime I get asked about that person, I'm aware of their brand. And if someone I had someone ask me not too long ago, should they hire them? And I asked what was the role and what were they doing? And I said, well, based upon my experience, I wouldn't recommend it. And so be aware that your personal brand is also how well you deliver at work, how consistent you are with that, how you treat people and how you interact with people, because it still is a fairly small ecosystem. So once you've built that personal brand as well, start looking at our next tip, number 8, which is to share openly, share freely, and share humbly. And again, what do I mean by sharing? Doesn't again mean you have to write a blog. I think a blog is a great way of doing it because it does tick off a personal knowledge base. It does have an easy way for you to hold it somewhere on the internet where you can always access it. It does mean that other people can use it as well and you can build it on your personal brand. But when I say share openly, freely, and humbly, I mean help people. And helping people is the biggest single boost you can give to your Salesforce career. Go out of your way to give time, if you can, and give knowledge to your coworkers and others you meet in the ecosystem to help them in their career, and they will help you in yours. And that's gonna build up that network for you as well that we kind of discussed in our earlier tip number 2 about joining a user or admin or developer group. I've always tried whenever someone has asked me for some time to have a chat or to get some advice and help to do so. I've had people who are just about to start writing books reach out to me and ask if they could get my opinion on the structure of the book, on its narrative, um, on whether or not they should go with a certain publisher, on their, if I could even have a chat around the contract with them, just in terms of, does it look standard to the ones I've signed? I've had people reach out to me to review some of the stuff they've written, whether it's talks for events, whether it's books, whether it's blog posts, whatever. I always try and be generous with my time to do that there. I'm a solo entrepreneur at the moment, so in my instance, that is how I can help people and give time. When I was working at in a company, I would try and give my time to my co-workers and my team members to help them out on a problem. If they had a problem, I wanted them to come over and ask me to help them. When I did training for Salesforce, I would make sure that everyone had my contact details afterwards, so that if they got stuck, they felt that there was someone they could reach out to have an open and fair discussion around things. Because having a blank page in front of you when you've first been asked to code something is a bit daunting. And trying to be open and share your knowledge, trying to do so in a way that is for free. I do have a paid course out there. I do have books out there which you can buy and things, but I try and give out, from my perspective, as much as I can for free as well. But giving out information whenever someone asks for it as freely as possible, and in a manner that isn't you trying to show off, or trying to be, I'm the smartest developer at an organization, or I'm the best admin, you should all come to me, is only going to be good for you and good for your career, and it'll make people want to work with you in the future. As a just a personal story here, and an example, there was a an organization that, whilst I was kind of, after I just finished my last job, they had a problem. Someone there just said, look, would you mind giving us, just having a look at this issue with me? There was an integration error, and it was just causing all sorts of headaches for them. I bumped into them at a conference, and they'd mentioned it. So we had a chat, and I think it was about 4 hours that I spent just sat with them one afternoon, working through and debugging this integration. It was, it took a bit of time, and they had spent a lot of money trying to do it, but we fixed it. And they said thank you, and I said no worries. And next time we saw each other, they said thank you again, and bought me a drink. And it was wonderful, and we had a catch up. But following on from that, 3 months later, I was chatting to them about some of the work I was doing with my new company and my apps, and they said, great, let me go out and share this with a bunch of our customers. And they did, and it led to some work for me, because they were very thankful that I'd helped them with it. So you'll be surprised where some of these things can take you if you just offer to help people. Tip number 9 is to be prepared to move, and be prepared sometimes to move sideways. The Salesforce ecosystem is still quite a young ecosystem, and I'm going to say, I'm in the UK. There's still companies launching every single day. There's still a lot of people moving into the ecosystem from outside it. It's not, it's not as small as it was. It's not as open as it was, and it's not as tight knit as it was. That's never going to happen. But when you want to progress your career, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to make a move at some point. And I have left jobs that I loved because I knew that I wanted to progress my career elsewhere. There was one job I was working at. I'd been there for a number of years. If you go on my LinkedIn and stalk me, you can probably see who it was. It was a great job. I loved working with the people there. I loved what I was doing. But an opportunity came along for me to move into a different position that was more senior. It was honestly less money. And it was less money, slightly more insecure, but I got to do something that I wanted to do in terms of a slightly different side to my skill set and career path, and I took it. And so I took kind of a slightly financially sideways and down move, from a kind of job title position, I suppose technically an upward move, but it worked out wonderfully for me, and the decisions I made in that move have led me to where I am today, and have given me the confidence to start my own company and know that I'll be okay with it. So don't feel that you have to be moving up a ladder. Don't feel you have to be going up and getting bigger and bigger jobs. And if you're a developer, you don't have to go and become an architect. If you're an admin, you don't have to feel that you've got to then go and become, a senior admin, or move into project management or managing a team. Be open to moving roles and moving sideways. So from one admin role to another one, where you might get to do something different that you want to do. And I'm sorry for anyone who's an employer on the listening to this podcast who's now raving at me, upset because I'm telling people to move their jobs. I'm not saying to leave your job if there's no reason to. I'm just saying, if you are trying to get to a specific position, be prepared to move for it, and be prepared to move sideways for it if you need to. And then the final tip we have is one that really comes from Todd's interview, but I think is at the core of all of the interviews we've done so far, and a few of the ones that I recorded that are coming up, which is to say yes. And I want to close this episode with this tip as tip number 10, which is to say yes to things and to do things that might make you a bit uncomfortable at first. I remember when I first started recording any videos or audio, I hated the sound of my voice. I hated how I looked on video. I hated watching the videos back. I hate everything about it. But I did it because someone said, "Oh, you should make a video about that. Do you want to make a video for me about that?" And I said yes, and here we are. Equally, I said yes to. So when I wrote my books, I wrote them. I got the contract for the first one, learning Salesforce development with Apex, just before lockdown started in the UK through COVID, and I got the second contract just as lockdown had started. So I had two contracts for two books with two deadlines during a global pandemic when everyone, I was used to working from home, but none of my customers were. And I'll be very honest, it was, excuse me, it was crazy. You know, doing two books, writing that much, spending all hours sat at a computer, either working or writing books. But I said yes, and at the end of it, I'm now a much better writer. I think I'm a much better communicator of ideas. I've got books published to my name, which is a personal goal I always had, and it's given me further ideas for some of the things that I'm working on now to work towards. I have ideas as to how I'm going to help people learn Salesforce programming, how I'm going to help admins learn some of the technical parts of Salesforce. Some of the things that I've got that I'm working on in the background now are from me having gone through that. Going and, I've been given projects that I wasn't really kind of comfortable that I knew how to do beforehand. Saying yes to them has led me to do more interesting project work and to do things that I'd have never done before. Going along to events, just saying yes to myself to go to my first developer group has led to me having friendships and opportunities and experiences that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So saying yes will be the biggest catalyst to change. And to tie that back to our very first point, remember that you're in control of your career and only you can say yes. I hope you've enjoyed this episode as a intermission and a different episode in between our normal interviews. Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please remember to like it. Please remember to leave a review on any of your podcast players and to share the video or the link to the podcast with your friends and colleagues. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll speak to you on the next episode.